Okay, so in the next part of this session, I want to talk about how we can use Mangahigh to help our students develop a growth mindset workflow. What that means is the activities on Mangahigh, what sort of instructions or encouragements we give our students, and so that they are actually using it effectively and they are noticing their own growth and they can actually start discussing and having a conversation around growth and what to do next, and actually use Mangahigh as a tool to help them create this growth mindset that we've all been speaking about. So keep in mind there are two types of activities on Mangahigh. There are the Prodigy learning quizzes, and the idea behind these learning quizzes is to help our students develop understanding and reasoning skills, and all the way through to problem solving as they progressively get to the harder or extreme questions. The other type of activities on Mangahigh is, or other games. So the games are really for creating that sort of fluency skills where our students are practicing the concept over and over again until it becomes second nature to them. So it becomes very automatic for them, and that's really powerful. Now, when our students have successfully achieved a particular standard in the game, or we call it a pass mark, we then reward them and say, okay, well, you have passed at a bronze level, or something a little bit harder is your silver medal pass and a gold medal pass. Now, there is actually a formula around, especially in the Prodigy activities, a formula around how to get a bronze, silver versus gold. So it's not kind of a stab in the dark. And so the idea is we want to give our students some kind of guidelines as to how they can work productively towards their bronze, silver, and gold medal. So as you may be familiar with, Prodigy activities always start at the easy level. Now, each attempt your student makes, they get 10 questions. So they get 10 Prodigy activities, or the 10 Prodigy questions. So they will start off at easy, and if they're showing consistency and that they can pass the easy questions, they then move on to they move on to the medium level questions and progressively into the hard and extreme level. Now, your students will actually not get a pass mark until they are competent in the hard medal questions, the hard level questions. And then progressively, if they then manage to get into extreme, then we're getting into the silver and gold territory. Okay, so when we are requesting our students to do Prodigy, we do ask our students to have a workbook or a mini whiteboard in front of them, so that they are truly blending their learning, not just relying completely on the computer and then relying on memory to help them sort of use those mistakes to help them grow. So at Mangahigh, we have actually created a poster where I'm going to send you a copy of that poster and attach it in the link following our email, following our webinar. Basically, with the poster, we really use the poster to help our students think about what their workflow should look like. So as a start, we want our students to start thinking about using challenges as an opportunity to help them grow. So as you know, questions on Prodigy progressively get harder. We start at the easy level, then we move on to medium, hard, and extreme. We want our students to take this as, I can see my own growth. I can see my talents grow from easy questions through to medium, and then progressively work towards growing into hard and extreme questions. So while we take it for granted, I think changing our language when we talk to our students about growth is really important, so that they can see how that fits in with the tool or the platform that they're using. So as you know, your students will need to get 3 questions right in order to move up to the next level. And explain to them to expect that if they get 2 incorrect answers wrong, they actually move back down to the previous level. But the power here is, I want us to start getting our students to think about changing their relationship with mistakes. So at the end of the 10 questions, your students will see a bit of a journey as to how they went. So in this particular example, our students have gone from hard through to extreme questions. Now, if our students are instructed to attempt each task at least 3 times, what tends to happen is your students will do their 10 questions, do the best they can, do their 10 questions, and then they see the summary screen, I haven't received a medal yet, and then they'll click play again and just play again. However, what's really important, or the missing step that's important, is this idea of using mistakes to help me grow. So we want our students to click on these red boxes. That takes it back to the mistake that they've made, and using their workbook or that mini whiteboard, actually write down what was the question asking, how is the solution showing you how to solve the problem, but more importantly, get our students to reflect on why they got it wrong. There could be a common misunderstanding, or it could just be a mistake where they've misread the decimal place, for example. But that reflection is really important to help our students see that they can use mistakes as an opportunity for growth rather than be really fearful of mistakes, which is unfortunately where a lot of students come from, especially when they use an online platform, because we have for many, many years so kind of use online as an environment where our students are doing a test, or it's a testing quiz. So, that sort of pass or fail situation is really depending on whether or not they get the answers, the questions right or wrong in their one and only attempt. Whereas we want our students to understand that in Mangahigh, or with Mangahigh, the encouragement is we want to do 3 attempts and click on any mistakes that you've made, to learn from those mistakes before you reattempt again, and you progressively through those mistake recognition and then reattempting and then affirming yourself that you've learned from those mistakes because you've now moved from hard through to extreme. It's really important to help our students learn that process of using mistakes to help them grow. Okay, so of course the other part of growth mindset is there is a bit of a leaderboard on all of our activities. And we want our students to start thinking about using the leaderboard as an inspiration rather than being that kind of name and shame kind of situation on our leaderboard. We try to encourage our students to think about leaderboard as a positive competition rather than a negative one. So strive for something a little bit higher rather than a negative one. Now that said, because there's a leaderboard on every single activity, our students might appear on one leaderboard but not on another, and then they kind of just, it becomes part of a parcel. So it becomes, an inspiration, a positive conversation rather than a negative one. So using feedback to construct their learning. So like I said, when we're playing Prodigy, and I'm flicking around the poster that I'm going to send you, by the way. When we are playing Prodigy, it's really, really important that our students think about not giving up. They want to play again. So my effort and attitude determines my abilities. It usually takes at least 3 attempts, as I mentioned, to pass an activity. So encourage our students to attempt each activity at least 3 times. Every time you play again, you get a different set of questions. So starting from that level that you finished previously. So we're not going all the way back to easy every time. The system's clever enough to say, well, looks like you got up to the hard questions in your previous attempt. Let's start you back at hard. And at the same time, also at the extreme level, if you finished at extreme, go back into extreme and or start again, play from extreme level and then grow from there. Okay, so this is all really important because then we start talking to our students about the difference between the bronze, silver and gold medal standards that we achieve. Now, I've put a little note here to get our students to think about, that whole games learning versus Prodigy learning quiz, because students are generally speaking very connected to games. They look at games, they look and see it's high-level graphics, it's fun, it's exciting. But we want to explain to our students that games are great for developing fluency and automaticity and so forth, but the quizzes is where we get our students to start developing conceptual understanding and reasoning skills. So this actually helps our students train different parts of their brain. So that sort of automatic long-term memory part of our brain, as well as that deep thinking part of our brain where we use and we kind of borrow from that automatic brain to help solve deep problem solving tasks. Okay, so on a regular basis, you really should be assigning a balance of Prodigy activities as well as games-based activities so that our students are actually training different parts of their brain. In terms of number of activities, I normally suggest for teachers to assign. get our students to do about 2 or 3 Prodigy activities per week and couple that with one game activity. It's really important that we don't overdo the games right from the get-go, because we do want our students to get into the depth of the game as well. So if you were, if you were assigning 2 or 3 games all in the one go, what tends to happen is students are spending a lot of time figuring out the game mechanics. So how does the game work? How do you win? How do you get your bronze, silver, and gold medal? So they're spending time on the game mechanic rather than getting deep into the game. So if you're assigning a game like this, Pinata Fever, by the way, okay, if you're assigning a game called Pinata Fever, you want to assign this task at least for 2 to 3 weeks. So that's sitting on their to-do list for 2 to 3 weeks. And expect that they don't pass in their first go, because most games are really, really hard to pass in the one go. So students will need to revisit it before they delve a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper every time they revisit the task. Okay, so the other part of growth mindset is this. In the past, we kind of get our students to say, all right, well, do the best you can. And then whatever the best you can is the score that you get, which is fine. Okay, so some students might be working on 75%, some students might be working on 80%, and so forth. But on Mangahigh, we try and do things a little bit differently. We want our students to think about growth and next step all the time. So when your students have, achieved a bronze medal, so they have answered easy questions right, their medium questions correct, and then their hard questions, and maybe they get the extreme questions wrong, but they've really shown consistency in their hard questions, they'll then earn a bronze medal standard, which is our pass mark, our minimum pass mark. So they need to get at least a score of 4,200 points, or roughly 3 or more hard questions correct, to get a bronze medal. At this point, we don't want our students to say, yep, that's done, that's okay, I'm happy with it. We encourage our students to challenge themselves further and see if they can upgrade to a silver medal. Now, to do this, they need to get at least 3 hard questions right and the remainder of it in extreme questions correct. Or in numerics, get at least 9,000 points wrong, 9,000 points in order to get a silver medal. But again, from there, we then say, okay, well, where to from here? As a next challenge, they could push themselves further and perhaps earn the ultimate gold medal. All right. To do this, your students will need to get all 10 extreme questions correct. So in other words, get at least 14,000 points. All right. So as a school, you are part of a monthly leaderboard, or when we do competitions, you are part of a competitive leaderboard as well. And of course, you can opt out if you want to. Just send me a quick email and say, look, we're not interested in the competitions or the leaderboards. Can you please turn it off for us? Happy to do that. But I want us to start reframe the idea of competition into a positive one, if at all possible. But again, if it is something that your school is against, just let me know and we'll sort of, switch off from there as far as the competition is concerned. But if you are part of a leaderboard, and the way the leaderboard works is this. So as a school, you have a leaderboard where it places your school on, let me show you an example actually. Alrighty, so here's an example of a school leaderboard that you might see. So all you need to do is, when you're in your school, click on leaderboards, and you'll see that you are part of the Australasia leaderboard, or perhaps the Asia leaderboard, or perhaps during competition period, the special competition leaderboard. You can also click on top 10 students, so you can see who the top 10 students are that's contributing to this leaderboard. And the way the leaderboard works is this. In order to place your school on a position of the leaderboard, you have a school cumulative point system. So this runs monthly, or sometimes in the case of the competition, it's during the duration of the competition. And all of these points is worked out based on the number of medal points your students have earned during that time period. So every time your students earn a gold medal, they're adding 3 medal points to the school's points tally. Every silver medal earns 2 medal points to the school's tally, and every bronze medal earns an extra 1 point to the school's tally. And this just keeps counting as the month progresses in the case of a monthly leaderboard. So as I said, as far as developing a growth mindset workflow is concerned, it's really important that we model some best practices for our students so that they know what they need to do to effectively sort of take on Mangahigh and really be very successful with it. So what I'd like to encourage you to do, especially in a brand new school year where you might have some students that are new to the whole Mangahigh experience, spend some time in the first few lessons actually modeling Mangahigh activities with our students. And the way you would do it is this. You will go to your class, okay, identify your class and go to school assignments. And from here you will see a list of activities that your students should be currently working on. So when they log into Mangahigh, these are activities that you have assigned them. And what you want to do is before they go ahead and actually start that activity, model it, bring it up onto the whiteboard and model it with your students. So from here, you can click directly in the current assignment section and click into the activity. Of course, if your students have started playing it, you can see the results and so forth, but we'll spend more time later on in about 5 minutes actually looking at the results. But what I want to show you is where you can go ahead and actually bring up this same activity and project it onto the board. So we click on info from the activity and click play, and this brings up the same activity that your students are working on, and you click play, and this plays the activity live for our students. And of course, keeping in mind, because it is adaptive, you can go through 10 questions or 20 questions, explain the click on red boxes to check their mistakes before you play again. You can do all that, and when they go into their own session of play, they get a different set of 10 questions again. All right, so keep going through the activities, and of course sometimes it is actually quite powerful bringing up the leaderboard if you're a pro leaderboard school, and actually have a discussion with our students about how it's progressing and how many attempts they should be making in order to get the bronze, silver and gold. So in this particular case, if we dabble into the leaderboard for a little bit, we've got a student here, Bobby Steele, who's made one attempt and achieved a bronze medal. So in terms of developing a growth mindset, what I would suggest to Bobby is give it another go. We personally, we feel that making 3 attempts, so exposing our students to at least 30 questions, will help our students, develop their true potential. So in other words, if they're only doing 10 questions and getting a bronze medal, we really want to see what they are capable of. Had they gone in and done the hard and extreme questions, they could really push themselves to the silver or gold medal zone.